believe the advice and consent would be the appropriate way to go. And just because I don't feel that we should just take whatever anyone gives us, right?
Well,
In this scenario, you're familiar with the scenario, yes?
without going into the specific case that you're referring to, I said if you feel that there are characteristics that would disqualify a candidate from serving on this board, I think they could be enumerated.
Well, I believe they were. Here's my problem, Councilman. I believe I don't believe it should have happened to begin with, right? But yet they were still allowed to sit on an advisory panel. Then there was multiple conflicts with the appellate board. I think this is what we need to weed out. We need to fix what's broken here in recreation, and there's a lot broken in recreation. And it's not with just one organization in general, it's with all the organizations across the board, and they look to us for direction. I really think that we need to weed out those that caused this issue to happen. I can tell you that I wouldn't want any of them sitting on the Recreation Advisory Board after what had happened. That's where I'm coming from. I'm not being argumentative, I'm just stating openly that as a father of 4 children, I think you can agree as a father of 2 children that should this have occurred and you were this close to the situation, you probably feel the same way I do.
In crafting policy, it's always my position to make an authority that is the least likely to be abused from us as a council, whether it be us or future councils.
So no, I don't disagree, but I do believe that it was. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, I think this is just the position we're going to agree to disagree.
Sure.
And I'm okay with that.
I can absolutely agree to disagree, Councilman. Okay. Councilman McVeigh.
I'm going to jump back to Council Vice President for a second on the annual report because of the budgetary responsibilities. Are you suggesting to strike 597 annual?
I think just that. She's saying just that
Just the
clause.
Just the in conjunction with the budgetary responsibilities. Initially, when this was written, there was a whole, they would
Yes.
prepare a budget to present to council,
Yes.
and that was taken away. So I just think that part was left out. The only other thing I did add on here, and I failed to point it out, was I wrote the Rec Advisory Committee should submit a copy to the mayor's office, and they will make an annual report to town council because the mayor should be in the loop as well. But yeah, that was the only reason.
Are we striking December out of that or just an annual report to mayor and council? I mean, I hate to put these folks on a deadline, especially if you're entering December. We all know what it's like to work in December. No.
It is pretty clear.
I would just, I would suggest not date stamping it as a month. Just have that annual report to the mayor and the council so both parties have a chance to absorb the recommendations, one for the mayor receiving it and then 2 presenting the budget to council.
Why don't we put in prior to introduction of the budget?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Because that's the intent we want
Let's
with
strike
the review.
December.
I agree.
That helps us make a decision from April.
Okay, I'll write it and resend.
And I just have one more thing to Councilman Davis's point. I do understand and actually lean towards enumerating rules. So I completely get your point, but I guess that's the way it was or is, and that has failed. So I understand the change. And that, that's something I'll think. That's something I'll think about. The council and some good points. Meaning you can make 170 points of enumeration and see if you can go through that litmus test and pass. It's just something I'm just going to think about. But I just wanted to let him know that I understood his point and also what he was at. I'm good, sir.
Sure. No, I don't disagree to an extent, but my focus here is to make sure that the incident that occurred doesn't happen again, right? So, in my opinion, I'd like to see more control with regard to coaching selection, stricter background policy, and the removal of individuals with conflict of interest, because as it stands right now, with 140-8 and 140-9, which we will be forced to rewrite with the implementation of this ordinance, there are several conflicts. Those who are directly involved or were directly involved in this incident sit on an appellate review board, or they're making these decisions when they couldn't make a correct, in my mind, a decision based upon any parent's moral compass. It was something that let me down, and a lot of people that I know down as well. So I guess ultimately what I'm saying is that we would need stronger laws so that the governing body has the ability to fix what's broken. And I'm very open to what Councilman Davis said. I think that this is something that is a work in progress, but as long as you tell me that that incident will not happen again when we're ready to vote and that it'll be ironclad, I'm good to go. So I think we're gonna have to get 140-8 and 140-9 on the next agenda, next work session.
Okay. So do we just want to leave this as is then?
We are gonna go back and redo the classes as per what you had,
Correct.
Right?
Right, but how about the, are we doing advice and consent on the appointments by the organizations?
Well,
Or are
we can't
accepting them as is?
take action to this evening, so I would say that what we should do is, because there obviously is a disagreement here, I would say that we recommend to amend, right, at the next meeting, and then we vote on that amendment. Would that be the appropriate way for?
I think because it is tabled now, so that if it's introduced to the body, so if we have an amendment, we could adopt it. If we have a new copy, we could just say amended as written.
Correct.
Yeah.
We could do a version A and
Just to make sure, because I understand that the council president's concerned, I just want to make sure we're not we're not commingling these things, which I think are separate issues, because this is specifically people coming to represent their organizations to talk about how they want to advocate for policy. All in all, this board can only make recommendations. It has no actual legislative authority. They're not making laws. They're not writing policy. So I hope that we can remember that when we're deciding and we're voting on that amendment. This doesn't actually change any of the laws regarding the policies that our recreation teams have to follow.
So my proposal would be that this board, this advisory committee, are the ones who oversee the background checks and whether or not you have a viable coach, right?
I defer to council on that, whether that's an allowable authority of the council to create a committee that can effectuate administrative functions.
No, so and that's why this was initially revamped. So the administration of town facilities lies with the mayor. So the whole purpose of,
we're not talking about this.
No.
well, we'll talk about the programs and everything else as it relates to the Department of Recreation. So the Department of Recreation, this body, this committee, will make reports and recommendations to the Department of Recreation, which is overseen by the mayor.
Correct.
So it's an advisory board. The town council is going to be limited under this form of government in terms of what action it can take or not take in regard to how the program is implemented and how the Department of Recreation is run.
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm going to speak candidly. Bottom line, convicted child rapist coaching kids, and this council can't do anything about it because the youth organization allowed it to happen.
The council can withhold funding.
That punishes the kids.
Right. See, that's where I'm trying not to punish the children and those
But
who were responsible
you
for
have to keep
allowing
in
it to
mind that
happen.
youth organizations are separate corporate entities. They're not, it's not the town of Phillipsburg, they're not employees of the town of Phillipsburg. The power that the town council, the town itself can hold over youth organizations and encouraging compliance and requiring compliance lies with funding of youth sports organizations, provision of equipment, provision of fields, those sorts of, those areas. That's where they can't tell Joe Blow Sports or Youth Association that you can't have this guy coach, because they go ahead and have that guy coach.
Well, if that's the case, then why are we doing background checks for
Because that's the requirement, that's essentially is the requirement for the funding to be provided, or the facilities to be provided, or the equipment to be provided. Because that they all have, if they're not in compliance with the background checks, then, and that organization doesn't do anything to rectify that situation, then the council is going to withhold the funding, and then
Or you modify the resolution that puts them under the umbrella of the town with the insurance.
right. and
Because
a
that's
whole-
an insurance liability at that point.
But it sounds to me like this council doesn't have that power, that it lies at the feet of the mayor.
That's right.
The council controls the purse strings. The mayor controls the exercise of the Department of Recreation and the use of facilities.
Right. So the last thing I would want to do is withhold money from a youth organization that's going to punish the children. But I would also expect that the youth organizations would make the appropriate decisions, in which this one did not. I'm trying to figure out a way that we can fix what happened so it doesn't happen again. Right?
Right. So you're talking about people who are coaching who should not be coaching because of crimes they've committed and they've been convicted of. That goes with the background check, and that's something that, right now I think it's every 2 years.
Right, but that's, and again, the system's broken because we just had one just fall through. Gentleman was convicted of assault back in June of 2014, was just found to be coaching. We brought that up 6 months ago, right? So the system's broken, or we have conflicts of interest where we're playing favorites and allowing people to coach when they shouldn't be coaching.
Right, so that's where the administration is going to come in on the mayor's side of making sure that the teams that are coaching present to the town an up-to-date list of who is actually coaching for that organization, making sure those background checks have been completed, that they're out of date, requiring a background check to be completed prior to that person being placed on the field. And if the youth organization thumbs its nose as a town and said, well, we're not going to do that, or we'll get to it when we get to it, then that needs to be made, the council needs to be made aware of that, and the funding needs to be withheld, or the facilities need to be pulled back from use. And that is going to cause, yes, consternation amongst the children, because they're ultimately the ones being punished by this. But that's really, that's how you're limited. There's only so much you can do. The town, there's only so much the town can do, So ultimately, it always comes back to the youth organization to make sure that the people they're putting on the field with the children of the town should be on the field.
Oh, I know how it's supposed to go, I just know how it didn't go, and I know that what didn't happen, and I know that they're still there today, not the convicted felon, thankfully, but, all right. It's like-
Council President,
Yes.
I believe Councilman Davis speaking, so you guys.
I was safe to say, I appreciate your passion on the topic, Council President, but so we have. I want to get forward to discussing that, but I want to make sure that we have appropriate time for the rest of the items on the agenda as well.
No, Councilman Davis, you're correct.
The other thing I wanted to add was, I believe with the creation of this Recreation Advisory Committee, it would be a favorable step, on more checks and balances added in between. So right now we have the administrative and executive and the rec. So this is going to tie, this will tie in the decision-making folks, and hopefully, because we do have that gap that you and Councilor Wenner just was discussing, and it seems like it could be a loop that, it's identified, is something being done. And this is a better checks and balances, a group of up to 9 and 10 men and women of the community that will put forth in front of, it's not just she said or he said, it's going to be this committee's recommendation to move forward, and that'll be a further strengthen or the recommendations going forward to put light on something such as what you're talking about. Hopefully we don't have to talk about something like that, but after looking at what we're going to look at, that we're going to put on to look at the background checks, in addition to the creation of this committee, it's a grand step forward into a communicative and just checks and balances of what we have with our children.
Vice President.
What if we add a clause in item C, because it does say any member who fails to attend 3 or more regular scheduled meetings may be removed as a member by resolution of town council at the recommendation of the rec advisory committee. Why don't we just expand that to include any member may be removed at the request of the rec advisory committee? This way it keeps a majority, it keeps us all out of it, and if the majority of the people know something occurred, they present it to council to remove said individual from the committee.
No, and I agree with that, and I would love that. It's just the mentality of this town. We have 500 people come out over a redevelopment plan, and I think 6 come out over a child rapist coaching kids. I just am having a hard time absorbing the whole thing, but I think it's best if we do move forward, because I do feel that father in me getting extremely angry that the entire incident happened, and we are still here 4 years, is it 4 years later? Yes, 4 years, almost 5 years, and we're still sitting here talking about how to fix it. The bottom line is if you're a sex offender, you have no right coaching kids. Councilman Davis, you're absolutely correct. I think that we'll move forward and we'll figure out a way to fix what's broken.
I think this committee could also be extremely useful in helping us come up with a pathway and make sure that we have a safe environment for all our kids. Good.
You were the voice of reason, my man. Thank you. All right, moving forward, the next is 2018-22, an ordinance of the town of Phillipsburg, County of Warren, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing chapter 464 of the Code of Town of Phillipsburg, rental properties, in order to add a new article to multifamily housing preservation and receivership. Councilman Lutz.
Of course, you know I didn't have my tablet. It broke, and I didn't have time to actually read it, but now I have it and I understand it, so I thank you.
Yes, sir. You're welcome. Council Vice President.
The only, and it was a suggestion, I believe, made by Mr. Minor on page 3. The complaint may include a recommendation of the receiver to be appointed. The word must has a little more muscle to it, so I concur with that suggestion. We changed may to must to avoid that gray area of may or may not. That's it.
Okay. Councilman Davis.
Yeah, I was hoping, I read through this and I understand the mechanics. I'm just hoping, I'm not sure which member introduced this, just to hear the policy goals and the effects that we hope to achieve with doing this, because while it reads very well, and I think that it could be an effective tool, I also think it could be extremely expensive litigation-wise, because it seems like there are a lot of steps legally for us to enforce this type of action. So I just wanted to hear some discussion about the genesis and the expectations of introduction of this ordinance.
Sure. As stated at the last council meeting, Council Winter reached out to me after this was passed in Union City. This goes hand in hand with the abandoned properties ordinance that you had brought forth back in 2016, I believe. They both were born at the same time. I believe it's another tool for us to fight the absentee landlords, those who don't maintain their properties, don't keep them up to code. It allows us another tool or another avenue to take should we so choose, right? No landlord wants to lose money, and I think that this is what this allows us to do. That there is that caveat, you're right. The downside is we could find ourselves tied up in litigation. It's a chance I'm willing to take. I don't know how often it will happen, but I do know that if it's on the books and we start enforcing it, maybe they'll start taking care of their properties. That's what the thought process was.
I'll just do that. No, I agree. And my biggest concern is just the qualitative criteria for the unfit and unsafe And that's why I think that we're gonna get caught up in litigation is we're gonna advocate that something is unsafe and they're gonna argue not, and then we're gonna go have to wait 8 months to put that before a judge. Which, and I'm glad to pass this as a tool to have in our pocket, but I'm hoping that if we get to the point where we're gonna be enforcing this, it's gonna be some of the most severe cases,
Correct.
so that we're not using this frequently. And I think.
I would hope that we never have to use this frequently. I actually hope that we never have to use this at all, Councilman.
Because I think in terms of affecting quick impact to the financial situation of landlords who are not being good neighbors and good citizens, the rent control board that we're going to talk about is going to be a lot more effective in terms of creating a financial consequence for those who aren't keeping safety violations mitigated.
No, I agree wholeheartedly, Councilman.
That's it.
Councilman McVeigh.
Now you say anything good?
Progress.
On this.
Progress, Councilman.
It's a simple one for me. I'm a big fan, 22, so I'm good.
Okay. I as well.
Chris, add something, Councilman?
Please, absolutely.
Sure, just starting with the council vice president, where it says the complaint may include a recommendation to the receiver to be appointed, that's direct from the statute itself that authorizes this action, and the purpose why we had, I think it's better personally to leave may in there as opposed to must, because the application is to the court requesting the court appoint a receiver. So if we make a recommendation, that's great. We have, an entity in mind that we feel, based upon past experience, is suitable for the purpose. That's fine. If we don't want to be pulling names out of the hat or be accused of, funneling business one way or the other. So I think may personally is best to leave as is. To address Councilman Davis's legitimate concerns regarding litigation, protracted litigation, if you actually have to utilize this tool, it's a proceeding that is a summary proceeding, which is legal speak for fast proceeding. It's initiated by what's called an order to show cause, a verified complaint, which is a complaint that's sworn under oath to be true, and you attach generally the certifications of the housing code official saying here's the history of this property, here are the violations that have been issued in the past number of years or months. These deficiencies still exist. No action has been taken to correct these deficiencies. It poses a public health, safety, or welfare threat, and we are requesting that a receiver be appointed. The whole process is a matter of months in terms of getting before a judge and getting a resolution, receiver appointed, a plan adopted. So it's certainly valid. The legitimate concern that you mire down the court system, but this is designed statutorily not to have that happen.
And just for my information, in terms of the appointment of receiver, what type of entities do you typically see appointed as receivers?
So you typically see entities that are property management companies.
Okay. So not like individuals, but be like professionals?
Correct.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Great. We can move forward to ordinance number 2014-21, an ordinance of the town of Phillipsburg, county of Warren, state of New Jersey, amending section 422-11, the use or possession of liquor, use of tobacco. The code of town of Phillipsburg prohibits smoking of tobacco in all parks and all recreational or athletic facilities owned or leased by the town of Phillipsburg. Start with Councilman Woods.
Nothing on that. I hope we're going to change that.
Change it to allowing them to do it?
No, change them, extending.
Yes. Just trying to clarify, Councilman, that's all.
Council President, what is the amendment that we're proposing here? Are we just discussing general the better?
Right, this was just general
Okay.
discussion to figure out how we can bolster the ordinance, and this we will need the input on. Right, so.
If I could count, go ahead, Councilor.
No, I was going to say, the concern at the last meeting was that while they might not be smoking on grounds themselves, they're just moving, within
They step on somebody else's property and do it.
Yeah, or what are our legal rights, Counselor, in terms of what we're allowed to enforce and what we're not?
Right, so New Jersey has a comprehensive framework that governs the smoking and the use of tobacco products in public. The town obviously has the right to do what it has done previously, and that's prohibit the use of tobacco products on public areas. Where you get into gray area is sidewalks, streets, public gathering areas, in terms of how far do you extend it. And you also get into the practical application of enforcing any kind of restrictions that you then have. So personally, this is a personal opinion, I think the power of the crowd and shaming people who are smoking near kids is a lot more effective than trying to legislate and enforcing that legislation. But that's just my personal opinion on the matter.
Excellent. But this is something that obviously we can issue, well, not we personally, but the mayor can authorize the police department to issue citations, right, if we see it?
The police, yeah, even without his authorization, the police.
Right, but he does oversee the police department and has an influence over the police department, so if he were to ask them to step up enforcement and start enforcing this issue, because I'll be honest, I've seen it at bus stops, which I just don't understand. If you can't smoke in your car with your kids, why would you smoke at a bus stop right next to your kids? I'll wait till last. I apologize. Go ahead, Council.
So I researched the New Jersey state and federal tobacco control laws. There is a clause on public places. This is how it reads. I think it would satisfy all parties. Smoking or carrying lighted tobacco may be prohibited by the owner or person responsible for operating in a public place or by municipal ordinance under the authority NJSA 40:48-1 and 48-2. Conspicuous posting of adequate notice of prohibition is required. Researched the label. This law may also apply to outdoor areas, including sports facilities and parks and recreation areas. Maximum penalty, $200 and 30 days imprisonment, enforced by police or citizen complaint. Violator is a petty disorderly person, NJSA 2C:33-13B and C.
Yeah, public places is a restaurant. You're in a restaurant, you can say, outdoor seating.
Here's what somebody did. Big sign, thank you for not smoking. To report a violation or file a complaint, call the mayor's office, down Phillipsburg, New Jersey.
Mayor, you got a sign here.
It doesn't really say that, but that's my suggestion.
But
I mean, what we can certainly do is just.
That would be up to,
And then, we can.
it would be an amendment to
Iterations
B.
of a proposed ordinance, and you guys can consider them all.
Yeah, it would be an amendment to item B, 42211, if that reads. My only thought, you've got some restrictions on what you have to file, complaint, you have to have a date, whatever. But that was just an idea. That's it.
okay, Councilman Davis.
I have no further comments.
You didn't even
I asked about the legal.
No, I understand. I'm messing with you, Councilman McVeigh.
I currently work every day with the 25 feet rule through the city of Newark. I'm a fan of designating a footage. I'd only suggest it on how anyone else feels. I'm also a big fan of Councilor Wenner saying the shame, but I think that's a fantastic way of going it. But see that you have something like if they're not smoking on the field, well, it's a small street. I'm gonna go across the street, or I'm gonna actually stand in the street and smoke. I'm not on the park property, but they're clearly within 25 feet. I would suggest designating footage to be discussed, and that would be you have two. It helps from an enforcement side. It helps whomever is going to, and if it ever is going to be enforced, you have a certain area saying, I wasn't smoking, I don't know. It gets into a, he said, type, you said, she said type deal. So I would suggest the footage. I work with 25 feet. I go out and help my staff as much as I can, especially during, when we're dumping 16,000 people into the place. I go out and help them, and everyone's good about it, 25 feet over there, yeah, I'm sorry about that. So, it's my suggestion.
I agree with the 25-foot radius. It would have to be because, like Walters Park, it happens, and I see that at Walters Park during games. At Walters Park, we see them go out to the middle of the street, and they smoke because they believe that they're away from the actual property, but in fact, they're really not, right? Because it's still part of the property.
There's big signs that say no.
There are, and there's no dogs, no smoking, and they still do it. So I guess the only way to do it is to, and this is where I would call on the mayor. The mayor would be able to get your cooperation with regard to your influence over the police department to start issuing citations if they see them breaking this law.
Absolutely. Once the law's in place, the chief would be instructed to put someone there to get a handle on it and get the word out.
Okay, I am satisfied with that. Is everybody satisfied with the 25-foot radius?
Yeah, I think is a bus stop considered a place of public accommodation?
Right, so it's an interesting question.
Yeah. I think it makes sense, legislation, I never allowed to do that.
Right,
But
it does.
yeah.
But if you're not allowed to smoke with your kids in the car, why would you be allowed to smoke around my kids at a bus stop? And I'm just asking you, not in general, but. Well, you're right, but you're still around the kids, right?
Can't control bad parenting. Sorry.
Well, we just went over the fact I can't control bad parenting. We don't want to get in that conversation again. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure that we're not putting any of the children at risk. And I'm not trying to infringe upon smokers' rights either, because I do believe smokers do have rights. But really, when it comes to the health of a child who can't control their environment, I think this is where we have to step in. So Councilman Davis had an excellent question regarding bus stops.
Counselor really wished I had asked the question.
I'll get back to you.
Okay, so if we can
research
include
that.
bus stops, we will. But is everyone 25 feet is good for everybody?
25 feet's good.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so we can.
That is the law, isn't it?
According to what
It's the
council.
law, but it's not in our, it's the state law. That's federal buildings. and free.
The state supersedes us anyway, so we
It
should
does.
still be, okay. All right, excellent. This is the big one. We don't have it, there are no numbers for the next two, because they are up for discussion. The next one is the rent control ordinance. And I believe I had the clerk send out the Lopakon Township's rent control ordinance, which after taking a look at a lot of the historical significance of their rent control board, rent leveling board, it seems to have been pretty effective in Lopakon. Now we can model ours.